So, good evening. Steve Paxton and Jurij Konjar and Bond in between. I was so surprised when I saw the rehearsal of Bond a few days ago, because I thought it's not a performance that I would say that Steve Paxton signed it. We know you, or at least I know you from Goldberg Variations, from more meditative performances, let's say, and this is a performance. It has a story. It has a set design and costumes, glasses as homage. It has all these theatrical elements, and that surprises me a lot. And I would like to know what turns you in '82 to do Bond, to do the performance like this. It has to do something with war as well. A strong statement.
Well, in '82 I got a telephone call inviting me to Rome, to Spazio Zero. Spazio Zero was a circus tent, maybe it's still there, where they did theater and some dancing. So I refused. I was on tour at the time. I think I was in France, and I refused, and I said, no, it's not possible, it's too soon, and I don't have anything solo, and so they called back again, and they were very nice, and they kept being very nice, and eventually I said yes, because I had one image which interested me, from their provocation, from their insistence. I finally had thought of the cradle and the rocking chair, and I thought that was, I would start from there, I would build from there. So I said yes, and that's how it began. In my work over the years, about every 10 years, I make a political statement piece. I can't help it, you can't ignore how crazy everything is all the time. And so they come out, and this is one of them. And I think this was also, for me, a chance to just let images pop up. What belongs in a circus tent? Do I belong in a circus tent? What do you do in something that's not a? This is my home. The stage, is my place normally, but so that was the start.
But still, how did you build it? How did you get to you start with the cradle, you start with the chair, from the birth to old age, close to that, you start with the military symbols or military camouflage, let's say. You have military as a camouflage for art at the end as well. And you have the music which could bring out patriotic emotions. Here it was in a touchy way.
Really? You thought that music could bring out patriotic emotions?
It's a marching one.
Oh, the Napoli. Yeah. Well, that was because, you know how Italy feels about Napoli, do you? Strong and negative, much of it feels negatively. And this was a Napoli done by the Canadian brass band, and I thought, okay, I'm going to somehow bring up Napoli in this Roman performance, and the Canadians were the way to do it, because it's ridiculous what they do with the music. It's all about horn technique for them. And but the other thing was, it's a chance for the dancer, as you saw tonight with Jurij's performance, a chance for the dancer to get off this modernist, unpatterned movement thing and and come out in the way music has always done with dance. Give the audience a chance to check the performer against the meter in time. So that all the sound and silence before where Jurij dances, there's no way, it's harder, let me say. There is a way, I find it possible, but the chance to actually assess what he's doing without music behind the dance, you lose a kind of grid or time frame to check the movement with, to see how he's placing it. So, I mean, my question about Napoli really was, can the piece survive it? Can Bound survive including this music? And I guess I'm still thinking about that. Been a long thought, but it's still a question.
You came together through Goldberg Variations from a Fake It performance. Maybe we'll say something about this a bit later. And does Bound means that you will do all the Steve's works? Or why Bound now?
An opportunity came up, Steve asked me to do it, and I said yes. It was just, shall I? It was, Steve got an offer from Berlin last year to present a piece, and a few months before this recording of a New York performance of Bound came up, so those two things came together, and I was around, and so those three things came together.
Looking for significance, weren't you? It's not, it isn't, it just happened.
The simple things and the good things and the brave one usually do, huh? Just happen. How did you work on it? You explain a bit about the process in days before the performance, but it's your choreography, it was your performance, and now it's Jurij with his movement, his body.
So everybody understands that the dance is improvised in this piece, right? So it's never the same. It's not the same from one rehearsal to the next. So what we're looking for is not movement or technical work. We're looking for the mind that makes movement. We're looking, I mean, that was at least my search, and that's why I made the piece and made other pieces with improvisational dance. The thing also, I guess, that we have to consider is that it is radically different from Jurij's perspective than from mine. So I thought I was offering Jurij a chance to be in a performance in which he would improvise. But Jurij, do you want to say it from your perspective, how you came into it?
I was watching this video of a performance that I was to do in a few months, and I saw, I watched it and we spoke about it, and Steve told me about the context, when it was made, what he remembered about what he was thinking. I watched it again and again, and I thought, what is the essence of this work? I'm gonna do Steve Paxton's Bound work, Bound, which is improvised. How do I show this? How would another person that has seen this work see me doing it? How would they recognize it? And to me, I don't know how you saw it, but to me it seemed like a very full imagery, full symbolically. And I wasn't willing, I was very insistent not to throw any of those, or most of those things, not to throw them away because they seem beautiful and significant. It all fit together. And then within that, as there always is, there was plenty of space for me to improvise. or to focus on attention, so that every time I would keep making choices in the moment of what I'm going to do. So the focus for the Berlin last year's premiere was how to do Steve Paxton's Bound. Then for this one, because we had another little creative process before tonight's performance, and lots of things happened for me and in my work since last August, a whole other instant composition process, etc. So this time my question was, what happens if how much further can I how much further can I zoom out? How many things can I lose for this work to still stay Steve Paxton's Bound, but then what more freedom can I find inside? How much do I need to fix ideas or tools for me in my head to go out and improvise the piece? And so I didn't. And it only started falling together maybe 3 days ago, because I just didn't read all those kilometers of notes that I was making in Berlin so that we could perhaps tour this piece. And it was a whole other trip somehow, although it still remains that what works, works. Now, if you prepare it a month ahead, or if you choose it in the moment, you might still see the same thing, but you need to make it there. So that's a performer's take on that question.
I would still like to know how you do it together. How did you rehearse it? How did you talk about it? You probably didn't make a choreography as we know it, as a master to the younger dancer.
I think there are human things that are so much more complex than cultural things. And so the cultural part of it is that there is a choreography, and in it there are spots for improvisational play. And so the image sequence is always the same. And the music is on tape, so the music is always the same. And how we rehearse is, for the last 5 years, we've been having intense conversations and correspondence about dance and about improvisation and about the mind of dance, the thinking of dance, what can be thought. What does the human being want when they make a movement? What part of the mind is operating at any particular moment? What can the consciousness do to select a place in the mind to operate from? Anyway, some of that came from the fact that Jurij was performing and practicing the Goldberg Variations, which I had also done, used that as a practice. In the Goldberg Variations, once again, usually done to a recording, you have again a musical background that gives you very clear pathways in time. So it's very useful that way. Here, I think this is maybe more complex because those pathways in time are not present to guide the dancer. So it is more raw. This performance is closer to just watching the human mind play with time in all its variety, with every joint, with every limb, with all its energies, with its focus, with its facing, upside down, right side up, more the potential of the situation, until Napoli comes along, and then Napoli is back to the old order of things.
We mentioned already Fake It, the performance Janez Janša did in Slovenia for opening of the Exodus Festival. It was made out also practical reasons. There was not money enough to invite somebody, so Janez Janša did a performance with faking Steve Paxton, Trisha Brown, Pina Bausch, many others, and your job was to fake Steve Paxton. Did you at that time knew who Steve Paxton was? Did you know his work? What was your knowledge or information about Steve?
He was my teacher. He's been my teacher at school, and in every expertise or branch of art, there are some names that everybody knows who is in that branch, and Steve Paxton is one of those names. So it was both a person and a dancer, because I've seen him perform, and he was a reference. One of those things that you know a part of you because of the education you have had or the classes you've had, you know a part of his work is you, or that is your processing. That's what you learn. You learn what someone else discovered or came up with. And so, but there was a big step between faking, what was it, something like 27th of October 2007, November. There was a big step, like, it's an improvised piece that I was doing. So how do you fake that? How do you make a piece that is improvised, that has no set, very simple costume, repetitive music, Bach, could be elevator music kind of thing. Beautiful elevator music, but still, it's repetitive. So it's naked. How do you do that? Okay, you get naked, what next? I mean, for those who haven't seen it, it's not naked. You're wearing clothes, but metaphorically. So then, for about 2 years, Dejan Serhoj, who was dancing Pina Bausch, and myself, were having discussions about what we're doing. I mean, before we were having discussions with Emil for 6 months about whether or not to do this, and the dancer was saying, is it ethical? And I was saying, but of course, look, it brings this and that, and this and that. You get the mic after. And then these discussions with Dejan, and then there was the next step where I felt used. I felt that I'm the paper on which the theoreticians are writing their notes on art and restaging of art. And so I said, okay, but there is space for me here to claim this for myself, to inhabit this work. And so that was one performance. That was in Vienna, a performance where that happened, and a conversation on the 6-hour train there. And then after, there was it took me about 3 months to write the first email to Steve, proposing that I'd like to dance the Goldberg Variations for him, and what's more, to come to where he was living and dance it there. And now we're here.
What was your reaction? Did you say, great, a young guy wants to do my work, or...
Do you mean my reaction to Fake It?
To first contact from Jurij.
The first contact from Jurij was, well, I had already agreed that somebody could fake my work, and I was aware of the problems that he mentioned, and I thought, good luck, in faking. But Jurij's proposal was interesting. I wanted to see it. He proposed that he'd come by and show it and spend the night, and then he was going to go on to Canada. And but nothing worked out as he thought, and So he didn't have a car, and we found him in the south at the end of a bus route, you know, where Lisa, my friend and I, were there with a car. So we brought him up to the farm, and then started an amazing relationship of. It was sort of inconvenient to leave. I mean, there's no public transit where I live. I live in the woods, on a farm, a hill farm. It's 2 hours to anything civilized, you know, at least. There's no hitchhiking. People don't hitchhike in that area. People don't. So there was literally no way for Jurij to leave the farm. So in that way we got to know each other, and the conversations and what have you got deeper and deeper, and eventually he left and came back many times, and it's an invaluable friendship and relationship for me, because he's studying my work, he's studying my mind, and that makes me study it in order to communicate with him. And it's whatever the principles are. Well, we gave 2 lectures earlier this week about all of these things, so I don't think we should go into it too far here, but just to say that for me, it is so interesting, for instance, this work, for me to see this work. I made this work, I danced this work. When you dance inside your own work, you're never the audience. Now you are asking me what my relationship to this performance was. I am trying to be the audience. Now, I know I'm an audience that's seen the work many times, but that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to see it and see, like, what was I like in 1982? What was I thinking? All these same questions you're asking. Why the military stuff? Where did that line going through the head come from? The boards. What are the boards about, you know? And I have to make it up just as the audience does when they watch it, because of my new relationship to it. I have to say, well, yeah, I've seen it many times now, I can make a really complete scenario for myself out of it. But it's certainly not what I was thinking when I made it.
What is it?
No, I'm not going to say, because it's long and boring and detailed. You know, but it seems to me that out of my subconscious mind, as I was making it in 1982, not able to practice because, as I said, I was on tour and I didn't have the space. I didn't even know the space it was going to be in. I had to make things that would fit together. The things that got selected do fit together in an amazingly in a kind of free-form way, in which time starts in the Vietnam era. Maybe that's is this the kind of thing you want? Like, it's
not
maybe it starts in the Vietnam era. Maybe this guy is returning from the war. Maybe he's got post-traumatic stress. Maybe he has to examine things in a very fresh way. So I was giving myself a role to perform of somebody who no longer understands the culture that he's in. Which, interestingly enough, if you were alive in the 60s, sort of was the position that we had toward the culture we were in. We didn't understand it, and I still feel that way. I still don't understand my culture. But at any rate, the various aspects, the box, for instance, comes from cartoons of people who have no clothes, who are too poor to cover themselves. There are just so many things. I mean, obviously the cradle and that's obvious what it is, the cradle and the rocking chair. I like the fact that the box at that point gets to be established as his place. So you have the cradle, the box, and the chair, and then the man leaves the box, and so the box is the position, midlife position of somebody who's damaged or something, and goes out to try to find activity, meaningful, something, trying to cope. So this is why it's boring to talk about it, because it's just I'm now just an audience, and I'm just watching this thing unfold. It's, it's like trying to understand a mystery if as it happens, I made the mystery, but to look at it, I still have to interpret. I still have to, I still have the opportunity to interpret. And it unfolds for me each time. I love theater and dance for this. The unfolding of time that the performer makes happen by their concentration, and especially in an improvised piece. Jurij can do so many things. What he actually chooses to do changes the flow. It changes nuance. It changes focus. Just what he does. So that this changes every time puts an unpredictable element amidst very clear sequences of images.
Steve, I would just like to congratulate Jurij for tonight's performance. I saw it in Berlin, I saw it here, and I find it much more complete, his presence. I really appreciate the work you have done on the piece, based on these new tracks that you found and worked on. But today's performance, I really find that the piece somehow really completed, comparing to what I saw in Berlin. And let's also thank, I guess, to all of us who were here to give this kind of other pole to Jurij that he was missing in Berlin. And I think it was really, I would say, a very excellent experience to see it a second time at home, So if he had a spiritual father before who was watching, now he had also the mother here, and literally the mother. So that was a very good, well done. So interesting.
Was it harder than in Berlin to perform here, in front of your spiritual father and mother?
It was easier, surprisingly. It wasn't easy, but I remember the sensations in Berlin, and I felt a lot of responsibility. Today I was more relaxed. Also, we worked very hard to get here, meaning these last days. And anyway, it's one continuous conversation, like Steve said, since 4 years, and so it just keeps adding up. But I have a feeling if I do all the work before, then on the day of the performance, I just need to do it one more time. There's nothing special to do because everything that went wrong already went wrong. Everything that I haven't done, I already haven't done. And I always survive till the end. There was always something good. There was always something else that kept the tension. And so after that process, I just have to do it one more time. So for me, that allows me to perform in a more relaxed way. But I wanted to say something else. Before you were speaking about what you were recognizing as an auditor, recognizing what you were thinking in that time. The original box, the video that I was watching, Steve's box had X written on it, E-G-G-S, jajca. So I'm watching this video and with Steve, and you know, he's in it and then he takes it off. So it's like he hatches, could say Veli, and then etc. etc. So I'm telling Steve, that was so genius. You had eggs on your box. Steve is saying, I didn't choose that. You know, they were just there. It was just a box. So I think as an audience, we are in this situation where we have to decide: did the performer choose this? Am I making this? And I think an improviser, or when I'm there, I try to imply things, but not always take that route, because that gives the doubt, and that gives the interest, and that gives the space where everybody constructs their own meaning of made and implied choices. Do you wanna? So that's the process that Steve's been talking about. I think of recognition of your own, or your recognition of his, or my recognition of his, or your recognition of mine.
Maybe it's not important how you call it, but you don't call this what you do together, bound, Goldberg Variations. You don't say you reconstruct your work. It's a reconstruction.
Why not?
No, I'm just asking if you need to call it somehow, and what is it with reconstruction?
Reconstruction sounds very exacting, doesn't it? Sounds like you would be trying to, I mean, if it was a choreography and you were reconstructing it, there would be a pressure to make it as precise as possible. So that kind of precision is not wanted in this work. So it's an approximation, not a reconstruction. Some things are the same, the music is the same, you know, without need to reconstruct it, because it was always a recording. The language, at least English, I don't know about Slovenian and I don't know about other possible languages, are just terrible at dealing with these issues of, you know, the improvisational world. They're very good at naming things, and they're very good about suggesting hierarchies and things like that, but they're not, it's not easy to talk about things that matter in dance. Maybe that's why it's taken Jurij and I so long to discuss what we have discussed.
Vprašanja, želje, pripombe, karkoli? A?
Tam da mikrofona.
Sorry, Steve, I will say now something first in Slovenian, but then I will translate this for you. Jurij, ti si izvrsten, fenomenalen plesalec, res. Tako si me navdušil danes in v bistvu si želim, da bi na nek način nadaljevala pogovor, ki ga tudi midva imava enih 5-6 let. Tako da kapa dol, to ti hočem pač kot kolega iz najglobljega spoštovanja povedati, ker to moram povedati in nič tle ne igram. Res, svaka čast, super si in the best je, da imamo enega world class plesalca. Ne samo enega, ampak pač ti sodiš tja. Tako da to kot številka 1 in pol še v slovenščini druga stvar, ne, ta razvoj, ne, je ful sem vesel in ko bi rekel tudi vse to, kar smo takrat delali in se zaleteli v neki, dobesedno v steno, skozi steno, ampak bolj v steno kot skozi njo, to je ta fanatik, ne, iz Sokola, kolega ve, o čem govorim. V glavnem, fenomenalno je videti, kako se to, kam to gre naprej. Spomniš se, no, okay, I will now switch to English, yeah? So did you get the translation? Okay. When we were working on Fake It, basically we wanted to big dignity do the works which have never been shown here. And of course, this is very difficult ethical and question, and opens many other things. But what I found interesting is actually that this work continued. And if you remember well, the Fake It, when we did it, and the idea was to do it only once, as a kind of more like a cultural protest or a gesture for cutting and a budget for the festival and not being able to see relevant dance works. But the idea was, okay, then after this, my work is done as kind of curator or the initiator of the process. Do what you want, actually. And Jurij, you did. So you give me great satisfaction by what you are doing. But what I would actually like to ask you, Steve, maybe, is first question, is this the first, maybe you've been asked already this, but is this the first time that you are doing a piece which you danced yourself with another dancer? When you were processing this, because it's not a simple task, and I've been working also with other artists who were re-approaching their earlier works with even bigger distance in time. What did you actually, what did resonate in you? Why is this work actually, what is the motivation? Is it like a dialogue with Jurij? Is it a dialogue with yourself? I can imagine that things are interfering, that it's not like a simple thing, but what is actually artistic challenge in going back to something which has been done by yourself and you've never seen it, and now in a way trying to see it? How much can you not project yourself on Jurij when you work, when you create and work on this work?
Well, I think we've touched on all these issues during the evening. Just to say, yes, it is very much about the dialogue. The dialogue started with Goldberg Variations, which started with Fake It. So thank you very much for sparking. I'm sure this was your intention, was just to start thinking on these issues and what could be done. For me, as somebody who's been a performer for 50 years or more now, it is extremely amazing to be an audience for my own work. Video is not the same. It requires someone like Jurij, who has had the patience to be in this dialogue too, to get up and do what he can do, not what I can do, and there's no projecting involved. I think that would be naive of me to project my dancing on Jurij. But I think my job is to encourage Jurij to explore his own dancing, only because he gives me that power. as choreographer and director. So I have a very delicate job, which is I keep throwing feathers at Jurij, and he keeps either taking them very seriously or dodging them or whatever. It's a communication. It's a delicate and deep communication between two dancers. So I can't think of a better reason to be here in Ljubljana tonight, than to be pursuing this. It's great to be here. It's great to see Jurij's hometown. It's great to be amongst the people in the town. Great to meet his mother, eat the food. Very nice indeed.
May I something? I really like this. What you just said, that it is actually a dialogue between two dancers. I had I'm not a dancer. I'm not a choreographer. My knowledge about dance is so poor that it's better not to say anything in that direction. But I had recently an experience working with a colleague artist who is choreographer and great dancer, Istok, and we made a show together, which I called dance dialogue. I call it because, okay, maybe I'm more with words and so on. But I think this is something which I miss it terribly, dialogue among dancers. And I think that maybe that you came out actually from the culture where the principal way of working in dance was a dialogue. Maybe I'm completely mistaken and romanticizing the 60s in New York and so on, but somehow I think that maybe one of the greatest value it was exactly this dialogue and exchange among dancers and choreographers.
Before Steve came and to this place, to my place, well, as he said many times, I went and I lived where he's from or where he chose to live. And I want to talk about it because I spoke to Steve about why, after we have agreed that we're going to, the Baum will come and that he will come, I told him what I think could come from his visit to Slovenia. I told him how important it was for me to see dancers that have been working continuously for 60 years or 50 plus years, because there's been other dancers at this place, and I will not go into names now, but basically the other thing for me was, and I say it also because I know that the scene is here, or parts of it. I was amazed that everybody was treated each other as people, as well as farmers, as people living in a farm in the countryside. The artists and the non-artists. It wasn't like, for example, in festivals where artists are treated like artists, whether with hypocrisy or not. And in this atmosphere of working with your hands and working continuously and living modestly, there is a continuity of work and continuity of interest within the means that exist, that you create. For example, you build a studio out of wood, or not, or you dialogue behind a table, but there is a continuity of work which bears fruit. So it's work that sometimes I think sometimes it wasn't as big when it was happening than 20 years later. And I'm not talking about Bound here, I'm just talking about this was a while ago there was such a thing as underground or alternative, before it was financed by the governments maybe, and so it took time to realize that that was important, or that it became important. So anyway, the continuity of work, the means of working, the continuous interest or following the interest of the people involved, and then the normality of life, such as gardening. That was that place, or that is that place.
What's next for you two?
Dinner.
I don't mean tonight, but in the near future.
Next, Jurij is going to perform in the Biennale in Venice. And after that, he's going to do a performance where I'm not going to attend. And I'm already missing being there. But yeah, I am really uncomfortable flying these days. I feel like the planet is on the edge of falling apart. And I feel like it's me flying that is going to be the last straw. And so I'm trying not to fly so much. I wanted to say one more thing about this situation. I'm devoted to improvisation. It's a discipline. And that suggests that aside from videotape, that I am okay with the fact that it disappears the minute that it's made. So that what you're leaving behind is not a body of work or a choreographic future, but nothing. You are leaving nothing behind. I think that's a political statement, but I'm sad sometimes to think that that's the case, but I think it's the reality anyway. I mean, it's just a question of how long you prolong the moment that something lasts. Merce Cunningham very wisely, knowing he was dying, said, okay, my company will last 2 more years, a farewell tour, and then it will disband. And Martha Graham, on the other hand, didn't say that, and her company is still there, and we don't know quite what to make of it because it still does some of the Graham works and it's doing the Graham technique. There are many valuable things about it, but it doesn't anymore have the Graham vision, which means that it can't progress in Graham's possible future works at all. I mean, it's death, that's all it is, but it's sometimes difficult to figure out the practicalities of it. So, this particular work was videotaped. It's not a very difficult work, except for the implications of the dancing. That's impenetrable and impossible to understand, but the rest of it's pretty clear. And so it's just a lucky event that it's here or anywhere in this day and age. And that's why it's so amazing for me to be the audience for it, because it was just chance. I didn't know this videotape existed for many years. I'm okay with the majority of my work already being gone. I'm very happy that this one piece stays a little longer. But I really am devoted to improvisation. I really think we have to look at that moment of life and accept the moment when it stops. And that, I think, is a short thing to say and a deep thing to do.
I think that the way you put it and what you said now, it's hard to add anything and to continue because it was so strong and powerful, and thank you for this, and thank you for this evening, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming.